Hello, everybody, and welcome to the afternoon tune. I'm your host, Josh, and with me, I got my special guest host today. I got Neil. How's it going there, Neil?
It's going pretty good. Just a pretty average Monday. Just trying to stay dry with all the flooding going on, but doing pretty good otherwise.
Yes, there is that flooding going on that many people are aware of there, affecting a lot of areas there in Texas. Uh, so, uh, yeah,
Yeah, it's just a shame how much of how it's affected so many people. So we're just trying to do what we can with it.
yeah. But got a good show. People today gonna be doing a movie review. Gonna be doing some video games, and yeah, head out here. And I'll go ahead and raid somebody after this. Got some good people on I can raid after this. I got Yadira's on right now. She's playing that Fortnite. I got Geekdom78. He's playing that Lives of P. There's Meanie Portable on, who's a sports wrestling content creator streamer. It's Monday, so I think she's probably watching Monday Night Raw, maybe. So there is that. So good people to rate after this. And the chill spot, he just popped up. Good old chill. He just popped up streaming. So maybe give him a rate if he's still on after this. But got a good show. Going to be reviewing Superman 1978 there. Doing a retro review for that since James Gunn's Superman is going to be coming out this week. Then going to be reviewing for Death Stranding 1 because the sequel to Death Stranding is out right now. Sequel there from Hideo Kojima and also do a review for FBC Firebreak. That's the new Remedy game, the multiplayer game, their very first multiplayer game in the company's history. So do a review for that as well. And yeah, future stream wise, hopefully Neil can join me again this upcoming Wednesday and do a review for Jurassic World Rebirth there.
Mhm.
And Neil also has a list of his 25 favorite movies of the century, this 21st century. So
Yes, the not all controversial 25 of the century so far list. That- Just throwing my hat in the ring on that.
I'd be interested to hear your list there. And see, and we'll discuss it there on Wednesday, as well as Jurassic World Rebirth.
Sounds
And
good.
then I'll do some solo reviews of Heads of State and The Old Guard 2. Those are two streaming movies there. One is streaming on Amazon Prime, Heads of State, and the other one is streaming on Netflix, The Old Guard 2. So do that. Very cool. Neil, let people know about you, man. What you got going on? What you got coming up? All that good stuff.
I don't have really not a whole lot going on with me. I'm about to go on vacation with my wife. We're gonna be flying to Europe to do a cruise in 2 weeks, so that'll be fun. That'll be our big trip for the year.
Okay.
And until then, I have been playing Death Stranding 2, which is why I wanted to hop in on the Death Stranding 1 review because I got a lot of thoughts on all those games.
Okay. Be very interested to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
And Sage from Radio M for Immaturity is going to be coming on in about an hour. So I think that should give us enough time to do the review for Superman, and then he'll hop on and then do a review for that Death Stranding along with Neil. And I think he's going to have some other people from Radio M for Immaturity coming on here to also help out with FBC Firebreak. Also come on for
Right.
that. And then Friday, I may or may not do a stream. Friday is Superman, so that is when James Gunn. So I'll probably maybe just review that solo that Friday there. Saturday, I'll maybe have Chris Cox from oneofus.net come on for a review of Jurassic Park 1993 because Jurassic World is out right now. So do a retro review for that. And then Sunday, maybe do a retro review for 28 Days Later. And then Ironheart, the new Marvel Disney Plus show. That's not controversial at all in any way.
No
Um,
internet chatter about Ironheart at all.
no,
Nothing to see there.
nothing to see there. Nothing at all. So yeah, and do that. So that's what we got planned there for this upcoming week there. Very, very nice. And then maybe next Monday, I think, do a review for Fan Four Stick. I'll probably maybe do that review with Sage because the Fantastic Four movie's coming out.
Right.
So do for that. So I'm trying to decide if I should do Fan Four Stick or should I do Fantastic Four from 2005 because the actor who played Doctor Doom just recently passed away.
The only thing I would say is I think the 2005 Fantastic Four movie might be a little bit more fun to talk about. Fan Four Stick is just kind of depressing, honestly, the more you think about it. So, like, for the sake of levity, I feel like 2005 might be a bit more fun to do. At least there's more like cheeriness to go with that.
Yeah. I think I'm maybe gonna just end up doing that one. Yeah, maybe 2005. The actor just passed away. Seems right to do it. Now, how did you like Doctor?
I'm sorry, what?
How did you like him as Doctor
I
Doom?
thought he was pretty good. I'm not a Fantastic Four expert by any means, but I thought he was pretty. I thought he was pretty good. I thought him and Michael Chiklis were the best parts of both of those earlier Fantastic Four movies. Yeah, I think he did a pretty good job, even if the Doctor Doom character wasn't the most fleshed out or necessarily comic accurate thing in the world. I thought as a villain, he was pretty good, and he's good in pretty much everything I ever saw him in. So that trend continued.
Yeah, Julian McMahon is his name
Yes,
there. People might know him. Yeah, he was Doctor Doom in Fantastic Four. He was also in Nip Tuck, which I did see that series Nip Tuck.
I
Uh,
did. I did see a little bit of Nip Tuck back in the day, and that was a very crazy show to say the least. Again, he was pretty good as sort of a nighttime soap opera kind of actor on that show. And funny thing about this actor, recently, my mom, who is obsessed with like these CBS procedurals, she loved him in FBI Most Wanted because he was the main character on that show. Right before it ended, and he passed away. So that's how I know him fairly recently.
yeah, and he passed away of cancer. I think it was right.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was. I can't remember what kind of cancer it was, but it was. He never died. He never discussed his diagnosis. So he just he just died, and that was it.
yeah. So yeah, I think it was. I want to say maybe it was stomach cancer. I'm trying to see exactly what it was, but yeah. But he did pass away of yeah cancer there. 56 years old. 56 years old there. So
Shame.
yeah, there's that. So yeah. So that's upcoming streams there that we got going on. Thank you for Neil for joining me for this show.
Of course.
And we're gonna get into this. Get into Superman 1978. I'll pull up my notes for it,
All right,
and we go ahead get started for it.
let's do
Uh,
it.
let's do it. All right, very good. Okay. All right, people. So our first review of the day is going to be for Christopher Reeve's Superman 1978. You could tell a lot about a movie by the way they kind of address it. Some people may address a movie by the director or the actor there. Like when people talk about Spider-Man, they talk about it's Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, because that's so identifiable with Sam Raimi and his style and his kind of function there. That's such a unique style to him, and much like with that, you have Christopher Reeve's Superman. When people talk about Superman and they say, no, this is Christopher Reeve's Superman, this is when we saw Superman on the big screen, the biggest screen possible here in 1978. The tagline was, you'll believe a man can fly. And all people did believe that in 1978 when this movie came out. And this was at this point in time the movie with the highest budget at $55 million. This movie had the highest budget there. And this story tells the classic tale of Superman, also known as Kal-El, also known as Clark Kent there. This boy who was sent away from Krypton, a dying planet there that was destroyed by his father there, Jor-El, and he arrived on Earth there and picked up by Ma and Pa Kent, and then learns the meaning of right and wrong and grows up to be Clark Kent, and then eventually works at the Daily Planet and meets a great reporter by the name of Lois Lane. In this movie, really the first 40, 50 minutes of the movie is just telling that story. It's just telling where he came from, his whole origin, his backstory there growing up on Ma and Pa Kent's farm, him coming to the Daily Planet and working at the Daily Planet, and eventually to the point where he becomes you see him in the red and blue there where he is Superman. So you don't get to actually see him in the costume of Superman until I think roughly over an hour into the movie. You see that. So yeah. Oh, you gonna say something?
Yeah, it's about an hour into the movie where he fully gets his Superman act going, and yeah, what you're describing is just a classic superhero movie. And at the end of the day, that's really what this is. This is a quintessential classic superhero story from like the golden age of comic books. And it does, you said the tagline was "You will believe a man can fly." I did not grow up with this movie or Superman in general. It wasn't until like a little later in life that I got into the character. And after seeing this for the first time, you were right. I really did believe a man could fly because Christopher Reeve is he is Superman. There's just no debating this.
Mm. And this is directed by Richard Donner. Richard Donner, who people might know from other things. He also did Lethal Weapon. He did the Lethal Weapon films there, which were classic '80s buddy cop films there. So he was part of that as well. That was kind of one of the big things. He did go on to also do Superman 2, but he was replaced in that movie. There was a controversy kind of going on with that of friction with the studio with Richard Donner with Superman 2. Were you going to say something right there?
Yeah, that's Superman 2 is a whole other conversation because that's yeah, he filmed roughly half of the movie, but then he got into a disagreement with the Salkinds, who were the producers of the original two movies, and he was replaced with Richard Lester. And so the Superman 2 that came out in theaters is like a hodgepodge movie of like scenes that Donner shot and then Lester shot kind of mixed together. Wasn't until like 2015, I believe, when an official Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 was officially released.
Mm, yes. And also Richard Donner is known for also doing Goonies, which is another '80s classic film. He also did that. And also looking back at this movie with 1978, it's like now a lot of the major actors from this movie have passed away. Christopher Reeves has passed away. Margot Kidder has passed away. Gene Hackman recently just passed away. Of course, Marlon Brando. People know he passed away a while ago. So you look at this cast, it's like, man, that also kind of just makes you kind of have a lot of kind of sad feelings there, knowing that most of these people just aren't here anymore, especially people from the principal main cast of this film. And then also Richard Donner, who also recently passed away a few years ago. But watching this movie again, what were your thoughts there on Superman 1978?
So this movie is just classic Hollywood filmmaking is how I would describe it. Like the way it's shot, the way the characters are written, and the way it's acted and presented. It's very much done in the style of golden age of Hollywood, where like there's big sweeping vistas, there's big character moments, there's big like dramatic, almost theatrical kind of acting through everyone. And there's a lot of like grand gestures, but they all feel very human. And it's kind of an interesting contrast because in the 70s, we are going through the new Hollywood era, which was a little more auteur driven and more like artistically driven. But then you have Superman, which is very much sort of like a throwback in some ways. So like the old, 50s and 60s style of Hollywood filmmaking where like the emotions are big, but they're all authentic. And, that's the part of the movie that really resonated with me is just how real and authentic everyone felt, even if, the main character is a guy in a red cape flying around the city.
Mm, yeah. And Christopher Reeves does a great job at really humanizing Superman and making him feel like just a guy, which I thought that was really great there. And then you have, of course, the classic foil there, the villain in this of Lex Luthor, who has this master plan of he wants to destroy California there and replace it with his own Utopia, and there with land development there kind of going on. But it's really amazing how he's kind of able to do that. You gonna say?
Yeah, Gene Hackman, he's a hoot as Lex Luthor. He's kind of a goof in some ways, but like he's like a believable goof where like his plan's ridiculous, but at the same time, you believe it because like Hackman is just that good of an actor and he plays off of Reeves so well.
Yeah, and this is a clip right here from the movie where you see Hackman as Lex Luthor. I'll play a little bit of this clip right here
Right.
and show you there. Here we go.
It's open. Come in. My attorney will be in touch with you about the damage to the door. Otis, take the gentleman's key.
I don't think he wants me to, Mr. Luthor.
All right, Luther, where's the gas pellet?
Somewhere in the back of my mind, actually. This is a little idea I was toying with.
Is that how a warped brain like yours gets its kicks? By planning the death of innocent people?
No. By causing the death of innocent people.
And you see, I mean, and a lot of people kind of compared kind of Gene Hackman's performance as Lex Luthor to I guess a sleazy car salesman, kind of the way he portrays him, and then other kind of interpretations where we see kind of more modern day versions of Lex Luthor, like with Jesse Eisenberg in the Snyder films, and it seems like a little bit with Nicholas Hoult in the upcoming film is more of a younger tech billionaire kind of S figure there. What's kind of your thoughts there?
Well, it makes sense given, who the tastemakers are of the era. In the 70s, they were sort of like these behind the scenes sort of sleazy business guys, and nowadays the tastemakers are the rich young tech bro guys. So it makes sense that the interpretation of Lex Luthor kind of updates with the times. And yeah, I think the version in the 78 movie is very appropriate given the context of like who were the big wigs at the time.
Mm. Very nice. And Gene Hackman had already started building a resume already as a very serious, well-respected actor here in the 70s. Because in 71, he did The French Connection, which was huge there, which was pretty big there. He was also in crime drama Bonnie and Clyde there. He was also in that. I Never Sang for My Father there. So he was already starting to kind of, and he was also in The Conversation as well, the Francis Ford Coppola movie in 74, which was so he was already starting to build this kind of reputation, and that I think that also adds to the movie as well. You have these very well respected actors there with Gene Hackman and also Marlon Brando in this, and I think Marlon Brando lended so much credence to this film as playing Jor-El, and he's at the very beginning in the movie, and then appears later on as a hologram there. Later on, what do you think there about that? Do you think Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando add a lot more respectiveness to this movie?
I think so. I think just the acting in general adds a lot of respectability because like you have these very serious and like trained actors doing this material, and they just make it so believable. You are right that like Brando adds a bit of credence to the material because like he's like when he does his speeches about like what Kal-El will become and everything like that, you believe it, and it makes the movie work just so much better. Not just Brando, but like literally everyone is on fire on this in this movie.
Mm. And also Christopher Reeves, he was also a Juilliard. He also did study at Juilliard, which if people don't know, Juilliard is like the Harvard of art schools. Like if you know what I mean, if you study any type of art, Juilliard is kind of the number one place you would want to go there as a student up there. So that's kind of big, very big there. Um, but yeah, and this movie, I mean, it was kind of like I said, one of the kind of big things at its time. Nobody had ever kind of seen a movie on this level before at this time in Hollywood. So it is also on that level as well. Now, when you go back and look at the effects of it, yes, they haven't. Some of them have not really aged all the best because it is from 1978. I
Right.
can play a scene here where it kind of looks a little ridiculous. But did the effects kind of bother you at all with this movie?
Not at all. I mean, history happens. It was the 70s. I mean, I don't know. Like a wonky green screen isn't gonna mess with my ability to enjoy a movie.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Like you see here, I mean, he looks like a Muppet, like on Sesame Street, like you know what I mean. Like you're trying to move his legs and everything like that. I mean, yeah, it doesn't. This doesn't really
Yeah,
look
not.
all that good.
Yeah, that's not great looking, unfortunately.
That looks a little kind of ridiculous there. But when they actually do the flying sequences, I think those are still pretty decent. I think though, I think that kind of works kind of well there. I mean, it's still like okay, you can tell somebody's on a, it's very obvious somebody's on a wire, and that's still kind of there. The way they kind of just are just in kind of one place there, but it kind of doesn't matter because of the chemistry and great scene with him and Lois that just really makes you kind of overlook that, which I think is
Exactly.
really great. And this is also another big selling point of the movie is that Christopher Reeve, Clark Kent's relationship with Lois Lane, Margaret Kidder there. What'd you think about this?
Oh, they're terrific together. You really believe that like they are falling for each other and that they have a really good chemistry with each other. Like I totally buy them as like a real couple in the context of the movie, and it never felt hokey. It just, I understand it's movie timeline, so like a lot happens in like a relatively short amount of time, but it feels natural the entire relationship between them.
And this is a great scene, the interview scene here, where he shows up there at her place there, and she does the interview with him. and it's such a great back and forth there that they have, and how she's just instantly smitten with Superman there.
This is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
Let's start with your vital statistics. Are you married?
No, I'm not.
Do you have a girlfriend?
No, I don't. But if I did, Miss Lane, you'd be the first to know about it.
How old are you?
Over 21.
Oh, you don't want anyone to know how old. Okay. And how big are you? How tall are you?
About 6'4".
6'4". And how much do you weigh?
Around 225.
225. I assume then that the rest of your bodily functions are normal.
Sorry, beg your pardon?
Well, putting it delicately.
Mhm.
Do you eat?
Yes. I do. When I'm hungry.
You do. Of course you do. well then, is it true that you can see through anything?
Yes, I can. Oh, pretty much.
And
Which I think that's just really good. I mean, that sequence is, yeah, you're right. It's one of also my favorite sequences in the movie too. It's just one of kind of the best things here in the movie there.
Yeah, all the dialogue is just natural, not only in that scene, but the whole movie. It just feels like real conversations people would have. And, I just love also just like there's little moments of humor like that aren't like big jokes, but there's stuff that would really happen in real life, like, the whole do you eat thing.
Hmm.
Kind of, it's cute. It's cute. And I like it.
Yeah. And also, thing about point about the scene, Christopher Reeves also did a lot of working out for this role there. You know what I mean? Got to get in the superhero shape. So he did a lot of weight training for this, a lot of exercising for this to build the muscle there. And even with all that, I mean, this isn't like the physique isn't like something crazy ridiculous. Maybe you would see like in some with some superhero actors today. It's like, okay, this is seems pretty attainable there that you would kind of do and kind of look like with him as Superman. So that's also a thing there with that, which was very nice to see. Um, it is a little bit more of a slower paced movie than what I remember. I think I remember Superman 2 more than I remembered Superman 1 because I think a lot more stuff kind of happens as far as action wise in Superman 2 there. What's kind of your thoughts?
Yeah, Superman 2 is definitely the more, faster paced movie than Superman 1 is. This one is more of like, you know, an it's like a grand vista of a movie. It like shows you, a grand view of like the world and times of Superman. And, that does lead to some points where the pacing is a little on the slower side, particularly in the back half of the movie. And if there is one problem with the movie is that, the back half of the movie isn't as clean as the first half, but at the same time, it's such an interesting vista that you are seeing that I really didn't mind, even if in the back of my mind I did notice like, yeah, this doesn't quite the back half isn't quite as smooth as the front half.
Mm, okay. Yeah. And do you think that point kind of changes when you first see him as Superman, or just you think later on in the movie there?
I think it's mainly once he basically everything when he does his confrontation with Lex Luthor in his office. There's a pivotal scene where like Lex Luthor like does a aha thing with Superman, and I think from that point on, the story's a little wonky, and the sequence of events isn't as like tight as the preceding events, unfortunately.
Mm, yeah. And I mean, I don't want to forget to talk about this. I mean, John Williams score, 1978 with his Superman score. Is it the greatest score of all time? You think?
It's certainly up there. It's in the top five, and I think John Williams probably has like at least three out of those five top five spots for sure.
I mean, he's got one of the most amazing resumes for any composer ever. Superman, Indiana Jones, Jaws,
Star Wars.
Star Wars. I mean, he's in competition with himself as far as greatest scores of all time there.
It's kind of unfair, honestly, to other composers because it's like, you have other composers like, just throwing some names out there like Hans Zimmer and Danny Elfman who have done like, and recently Michael Giacchino that have done great work, and they're just like, I have to compete with John Williams. Like, what am I even doing here?
And then I'll play a little bit of. I know YouTube is a little funky about the music. I'll play just a little bit of it, like 20 seconds here. But
Right.
this is still a score used today for like everybody wants to have that Superman. Like they just still kind of replicate his score for Superman. Like other characters, other superheroes, like you see, like you mentioned, other famous composers like Hans Zimmer or maybe like Danny Elfman, like who did the Batman score, which Batman
Mhm.
came in 11 years from this movie. Like Batman still has other scores that are pretty like, okay, this is pretty still big, but I
True.
think nothing has been able to top what John Williams did with his Superman score and what Superman score was.
Completely agree with that.
And it's just really, really just such a great score there. Like I said, it's hard to say. I mean, if this is the best John Williams score, do you think it's the best score for any superhero movie ever?
Boy, that is a really hard question because I am such a big Batman fan that like I can't, part of me says I can't put it above Danny Elfman or like the Giacchino skill or the Shirley Walker score for Batman, but like it is certainly up there. If it's not a top 10, it is definitely a top 5 of all time for sure.
Yeah. And you'll see it repeated. Superman the animated series, they repeated that. If you people watch that in the opening, it's basically a rendition of that.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like a riff on that for sure.
yeah. Do you think this is the best interpretation of Superman that we've gotten? Is this the best Superman movie still?
Um, as far as live action movies, I think so. Superman is weird because there's been a lot of really good interpretations of Superman on TV, like with, Superman and Lois and Smallville, and recently My Adventures with Superman have all been really good interpretations. But like the movies have been kind of wonky in terms of quality with the character. But this movie I think is the best live action Superman movie for sure.
Mm, so, and recently, the last Superman movie that we've gotten, at least in the big screen, since that's not going to be this James Gunn movie upcoming, was the Zack Snyder film.
Right.
Well, you also had Superman versus Batman as well, but just a solo Superman movie. There was Man of Steel.
Indeed, it was.
You had that one there. And I don't want to beat up on Man of Steel, too much or anything like that. I'm not really a really big fan of this movie myself. I think it misses the fundamental concepts of Superman. But what were kind of your thoughts here on Man of Steel?
Oh boy. I am not a huge Zack Snyder fan. Just not even just his DC movies, just in general. I'm not a huge Zack Snyder fan, and I don't really hate Man of Steel, but I agree with you that he just does not really understand the concept of who Superman is as a character, and unfortunately, that's a kind of a big problem when you're making a Superman movie. If you don't really get the fundamental core of who the character is, that's just not really going to work as a movie, about that character.
Yeah. And I think, there's just so many kind of issues with that movie, especially just some pivotal things I think it gets wrong. Most notably, Pa Kent. And you have a great actor in Man of Steel with Kevin Costner as Pa Kent, who I think does really well. But it just the kind of ideology there. Are you going to say something or?
Yeah, I just totally agree with you that like Costner is a good actor, but it's all about it's the writing and just the thought behind the character, and it's not like I'm not coming at it from it only has to be this way to be good. I'm open to new interpretations of characters all the time. It just has to be like, it just doesn't really make sense. Man of Steel, just as a whole, to me, it doesn't at least.
Mhm. Yeah. And like a scene like this really exemplifies that here in Superman 1978, where you have him talking to him there.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I shouldn't.
Yeah, I know. You can do all these amazing things, and sometimes you think that you will just go bust unless you can tell people about it, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, every time I get the football, I can make a touchdown.
That's for sure.
Every time.
Yeah.
I mean, is it showing off and somebody's doing the things he's capable of doing? Is a
No.
bird showing off when it flies?
No. No, now you listen to me. When you first came to us, we thought that people would come and take you away because when they found out, the things you could do, and that worried us a lot. But then a man gets older and he thinks very differently and things get very clear. And there's one thing I do know, son, and that is you are here for a reason. I don't know whose reason, whatever the reason is, maybe it's because, I don't know, but I do know one thing. It's not to score touchdowns. Huh?
Thanks, Dad.
You have that great moment, and then just a little bit after this scene, you see that Pa Kent succumbs to a heart attack there.
Right.
And then there's a funeral sequence, and then you have this kind of really line that I think really encapsulates his sense of duty and sense of others, caring for others there as well.
All those things I can do. All those powers. And I couldn't even save him.
And that kind of really humanizes him in the way there, as opposed to something like in Man of Steel where he gets swept up in a hurricane and then there's like he could have saved him. It's like he did have the powers to save him there.
Yeah. I just love how I just love it in not just superhero movies, but in movies in general, where like not everything has to be a big moment. Like not every like big event in a character's story has to be a big thing. It can just be like a small thing, then a small truth that they realize, and that's just as poignant as like the biggest battle they ever have. And it's another example of like why this particular Superman movie works so well, is because the little moments add up to make a whole character and a whole vista to be a part of.
Yeah. So I still do think that this is possibly still the best Superman movie that we've gotten. Everything, and like I said, they've done some great stuff on TV. I'm a fan of Smallville. I know Smallville. It had its Monster of the Week type thing, CW show type thing there.
Right.
It did have that. I will still say, I mean, I don't think we've ever gotten a bad Lex Luthor. I think so far all the actors who played Lex Luthor have been very good.
Yeah, I mean they've been. Yeah, I mean, even Jesse Eisenberg was okay at points.
Yeah, even he was okay. I mean, John Cryer was very surprisingly how decent he was as Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
and Lois there, which you did have that. I trailed off. I didn't continue watching Superman and Lois very much. I thought the first season was good. I haven't watched the other seasons of it. But I did enjoy My Adventures with Superman. I think that's really great there, what they do with that show.
Yeah, I haven't seen enough of Superman and Lois, but My Adventures with Superman I really liked. I really liked the sort of anime interpretation of Superman, and it just has a lot of fun with the concept of Superman like just being a citizen in Metropolis, and it's got a lot of charm to it, and I dig it quite a bit.
And then, you got some controversy kind of going on with James Gunn's Superman from just simply stating what Superman is all about. From people around the internet going, Superman is woke now. James Gunn's Superman is about an immigrant that came from other places there. And filmmaker said that David Cornsey led film also comes at a particular time when people are feeling loss of hope in other people's goodness. So yeah, it's super woke now. It's not Superman anymore.
Boy, media literacy. We have a problem with media literacy in the country, but I find that fascinating that like the idea of someone being a good person is like a controversial statement. That's all I'll say about it.
especially for a guy that's, I mean, literally an illegal immigrant. I mean, a guy that's
Okay.
an alien from another planet there. But I don't want to divert too much on it. But I am looking forward to James Gunn to see what he does with his Superman film there, and even the score for this film is very reminiscent of John Williams' score for Superman, as you see in some of the trailers there with this. And James Gunn, this is going to be his, I guess his. I know he already did the Suicide Squad, but this is going to be like his official, like big. This is the start of my new DC universe here with Superman with this film. Are you having high hopes for it?
Yes, this is my most anticipated movie of the summer, just because I very much trust James Gunn as a film creator, and I just really like this vibrant version of Superman we see, and it'll be really interesting. The only I do wish the score was a little different. Maybe the film will surprise me because like it hasn't come out yet, but I am very much looking forward to this.
Mm, yeah. But back to 1978 Superman here. Do you have any issues with 78 Superman?
My only issue is just like I said earlier, the back half, like the back third of the movie is not as clean as the first two thirds, just because once Lex Luthor reveals what his evil scheme is and like how Superman is gonna wiggle his way out of out of this jam, it gets a little wonky with the storytelling, and the ending it doesn't end as great as it could have been. So that's really the only issue I have with it. Otherwise it's fantastic.
Mm, yeah. This is classic, just superhero, not even just maybe I'd say superhero storytelling, just classic film telling here. Like you said, with the sweeping vistas, with this kind of very minimal story here. It's not a huge CGI fest of people going Dragon Ball Z in the city and crashing into buildings and everything falling on top of each other. Like it's just very like small kind of story here, with this character of Clark Kent and becoming Superman, dealing with this villain of Lex Luthor and his dastardly plans that he must stop. There with that, and I mean, I talked about this a little bit with Sage, who's going to be coming on the show later, rated in for maturity. There, I mean, when you think about like a fictional character who is a mascot for, I guess, if you had to pick a mascot for the United States, either maybe Mickey Mouse or Superman would probably be that mascot, right? If you had to kind of pick that one person
Right.
to kind of represent everything, supposedly of what the United States is supposed to be about.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, you kind of have that kind of going on, and so iconic. And then, this movie, having so many, other films kind of reference it. I mentioned, talked about like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man film. Like there's references to, him, the Superman movie there, where he rips open his shirt and you expose that you had that. In the Wonder Woman movie, you had it where there's a scene in the alleyway where she, deflects the bullet, like in the alleyway here in Superman, where he catches the bullet, where him and
Mhm.
Lois there being with a mugger there. You have that going on. It's a very slower movie. It's a very dated movie. Keep that in mind. People kind of coming into it if they've never seen this before. It might be refreshing to some people, given how many crazy superhero movies we have nowadays with all these things going on, and this character has to set up this other character, and we got to do a stinger at the end, and all these other things. This might be super refreshing to people to have something like this, to kind of see of where it kind of really all kind of started there. And even before this one, you had George Reeves who played Superman. There you had that actor there. Funny enough, I mean, Ben Affleck played Superman, Batman, and Daredevil. I mean, he kind of played that.
Weird arc of film history Ben Affleck has with these superheroes.
Yeah. The craziest thing, I mean, is the reversing time at the end. I think that's kind of the kind of wacky, craziest thing there. I Maybe I'm not too super familiar with Superman lore. I don't think he can actually. I don't think he's ever done that before.
No, that's no power that he's ever had in like any source material, and that's a prime example of what I'm talking about when I say the ending isn't as clean as the rest of the movie, because like the ending is a giant Deus Ex Machina, and that kind of stinks, unfortunately.
Yeah. So that's one of my big kind of issues and sticking points with the movie. There is that happens. But otherwise, I mean, incredibly strong film with incredibly strong actors, classically trained actors, legendary actors that you have in this film from a legendary director. Um, I would give it, mm, I guess, a high peak order. What about you?
Yeah, this is it's like you said, this is a classical Hollywood film, in all its glory. Whether you like it or not in this day and age, that's up to you. But at the same time, I really encourage people to see, not only just older superhero films, but older films in general to appreciate the art form. And as a piece of art, this is a grand spectacle. It's not a perfect spectacle, but you don't have movies like Tim Burton's Batman or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man or the MCU as we know it without this movie. And there's a reason, because it's great. Not a perfect movie, but this is still a peak cinema movie for sure.
Mm, yeah. Like I said, this movie was the movie with the biggest budget ever up until this point. One of the most expensive movies. It was $55 million. Made a box office of $300 million. This was the second highest grossing movie of that year when it came out. Can you guess? In 1978, what was the number one highest grossing movie of the year?
Star Wars was 77. Was it Jaws?
It was not Jaws.
Was
It was
it?
Jaws. Jaws 2 was number 7 though.
Oh, okay. Was it a re-release of Star Wars?
It was not. I'll give you a hint. It was a musical.
A musical? Is it Cabaret with Liza Minnelli?
It is not. You want me to tell you?
Yeah, what do we got?
It was Grease.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So Grease, on a budget of 6 million, made 396.3 million.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
Who would have thought that John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John would have the power to take down Superman and Lois Lane?
yeah. Well, hey, them tight pants and that Grease, man. I guess it worked out.
Hey, when you have the Bee Gees on your soundtrack, you can only expect great things.
Um, and then John Williams, his musical score was nominated there. Was best film editing. This film was best music original score and best sound at the 51st Academy Awards there. And it's received a Special Achievement Academy Award for the visual effects of this, for its groundbreaking use of special effects in science fiction fantasy storytelling. The movie's also in the National Film Registry. There for its cultural significance as well there.
Rightfully deserved.
Yeah. And do you know what beat out the best music original score, John Williams, for Superman?
Oh boy. Was it Grease?
It was a movie called Midnight Express. There.
Oh, okay.
Giorgio Moroder is the guy who won it. So he ended up winning there for best. He beat out John Williams. I guess history. I guess it's not too kind to that. I don't know. Maybe it is a great classical score. I don't know. Midnight Express.
I mean, Moroder is a great composer, so I don't doubt the quality of the score, but I just have never heard it or the movie, to be honest.
Yeah. So that's what beat out there, that classic score there. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, absolutely. Classic film here in 1978, Superman. Two peaks there for this movie. Did you see it? Did you have it on DVD, Blu-ray, or did you see it on streaming?
I saw it on streaming. When I was a kid, I know I rented the VHS of it, but I just don't remember what I thought of it when I was a kid, to be honest. I was too obsessed with Batman and Spider-Man, to be honest, kid, to really give any other superhero a fair shake. So, saw it in hindsight on Max, a couple months ago. So I'm glad I did.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was our thoughts on Superman 1978 there.
All right.
Very awesome. Let's see if I'll contact Sage, see if Sage is ready to hop on.
All right. Let's do it.
I know he said he might not be ready till 8, but I know it's like 12 minutes to 8.
Okay.
So see if he's on there. Very nice. Are you gonna see it in IMAX this weekend? Superman.
No, I'm just gonna see it in a standard movie theater. Yeah, I'm just gonna see it Friday night with my wife, so that'll be good.
Okay. Very nice.
And then I have to take my mom to see it a couple days afterwards.
Okay. And where are you going for the cruise? Where are you traveling to?
Okay, so we're landing in Lisbon, Portugal. So we're gonna go from there, land in Spain, and then end up in a couple of Mediterranean spots, and then end up in London to finish it off.
Okay. Very cool.
So yeah, it's first cruise I've ever been on, and first time being in Europe in a long, long time. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. Hopefully, you think you're gonna get seasick? You're not a seasick guy, right?
Nah. I don't like. I hate flying much more than being on a boat, to be honest. So the flight will be the worst part of it.
Okay. But yeah, I'll see if let's see, Sage hop on here, and we'll do Death Stranding 1 there.
Right.
There. But you, how close are you to beating Death Stranding 2?
I'm about 2/3 of the way through Death Stranding 2, like the main story.
Okay. Very nice.
Yeah.
Sage has already beat it already.
Okay.
So he's already beat it. And then yeah, I think he was playing a little bit through the first Death Stranding there.
Right.
How would you compare it to the first Death Stranding?
The second one is much easier to play. Like the first one, I have very strong feelings for the first one, but it's unfortunately a real chore to play, just structurally and mechanically. The second one is a much smoother experience. So like you're able to appreciate, not only the story, but like the entire theme of the game much more.
Hey, how's it going there, Ben? What's up there, man?
Hi,
Yeah. I heard it's classic Hideo Kojima wackiness.
Very much so. And I love me some Hideo Kojima wackiness. So, I am all for that.
Yeah. Do you love his other games, Metal Gear Solid?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I am a thorough Hideo Kojima fan. So, I'm a little predisposed to like it, but it's great.
And are you going to get the remake, the Metal Gear Solid remake?
That's I just don't, I'm not super excited about that remake for some reason. Like, I don't know why, but I'm just not like. Maybe it's just because I have several copies of Snake Eater already, but I'm just not super excited about the Snake Eater remake.
So you got it on the PlayStation, or is it? It came out on the PlayStation 2, right?
Yeah. So I used to have the PS2 copy. I have the PS3 copy, and now and when the Master Collection came out, I bought all of those. I bought that compilation as well. So I bought multiple copies of Snake Eater and all the Metal Gear games. I don't know. Maybe I think I might have been more excited about the Snake Eater remake if they had pulled more of a Final Fantasy VII remake on it and like tried to expand on it more as opposed to just like copy the homework.
Because it is basically, I mean, it's all the same dialogue. It's just with a little bit of a graphical update.
Yeah, it's the exact same story, exact same everything. Like the controls are going to be better because shooting controls have been standardized at this point. But I don't know, that just doesn't really excite me all that much to like play through the same game again, but with like slightly better controls.
Okay, I get that. I've never played it before. My only Metal Gear game that I've played all the way through was Metal Gear Solid 4: Guns of the Patriots.
That was the one you started with?
Yeah. I know Sage says I'm pretty crazy. That's the one. That was my first one.
Okay. Well, I do love Guns of the Patriots. I would encourage you to play the other ones, though. I think all the Metal Gear games, even the controversial ones, have a lot of merit to them, just because there's a lot of artistry to them, and you'll never play another game like Metal Gear, just in general.
Yeah. Okay. But I am going to do the remake one. I think on my shelf I have Phantom Pain, but I never finished it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Phantom Pain is a really good one. Like, I enjoy the gameplay of Phantom Pain more than its story. Like, that's the one Metal Gear where I don't think the story is that great, but there's a lot of issues going on with Kojima and Konami at that point, and the fact that he kind of wrapped up the story with 4 at that point. Phantom Pain is a great game, but not necessarily a great story, unfortunately.
Hello, how's it going there, Sage?
Hello.
Hi, Sage.
How are we doing?
Yeah. Good to see you there, Sage. Sage, you've been on the show with Neil before, have you?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, hey, this is Neil. Good Neil.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, there. So yeah, very, very cool there. He's just gonna be helping, I guess, helping you out with Death Stranding 1. He seems to be a big Hideo Kojima fan, just like yourself.
Awesome.
He also chastised me for playing Metal Gear Solid 4 as the first Metal Gear Solid game, just like you did.
I mean,
I've had to several times.
In my defense, I'd be like saying, like, I've never played Kingdom Hearts before. Let me start with 3. Like,
yeah. So I'm gonna pull up the notes for you guys here, the trailers here, and you go ahead and do a review of that for Death Stranding, and yeah, and then you got No Name and Ulysses coming on for FBC later.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so there's this on standby right now. Okay, cool. All right, let me make sure I got the notes for you guys. All right, so Neil and Sage are going to be doing a review for Death Stranding, but not Death Stranding 2. This is Death Stranding 1 that they're going to be doing a review for, but Sage will eventually do a review for Death Stranding 2 pretty soon there. He just actually recently beat the story of the game.
Last night.
Did it last night there. He's been grinding playing that Death Stranding 2 there. So it's very awesome there. So I can't wait to hear what his thoughts on Death Stranding 2 on the beach are. From a lot of critics, it's getting critical acclaim across the board. I think it's one of the highest rated Kojima games ever, if I'm not mistaken. So very nice there. And it's kind of crazy because Hideo Kojima said that when he initially was drafting the story and presented it to people, they liked it so much, and he was like, well, people liked it too much. He had to change it, all of it, and scrap it, and come up with a whole new story because people liked it too much. So, so that's even crazier there. But yeah, I would be interested to get you guys' thoughts on this. So, Sage, Neil, take it away for your thoughts on Death Stranding.
All right. So, Death Stranding is a game that, frankly, there is no game like Death Stranding at all, just in terms of themes, in terms of what the actual gameplay is, how the story is presented. It's very much a Hideo Kojima game, so you can expect the crazy artistry, the what the hell is going on moments, and all that. But there's also a real heart to it, and for all the things Death Stranding does that is so against the grain, the heart is what people are going to remember it for.
There's an earnestness in what Kojima does that whether you like it or not, you can tell that he is like 100% believing in his own ideas and trying to execute them to their fullest. Whether that's working for someone on an individual level, I feel like that's going to be like, do you like David Lynch movies? That's sort of that sphere of question. But for me personally, it's something that does work. Now, I won't say in literally every moment does it work, but I vibe very much with what he's going for in this whole world. And I don't know if so Neil, I don't know if you're someone that was more for the gameplay and less for the story, or more for the story and less for the gameplay. I've heard reactions that are any kind of combination of those. But for me, the gameplay of this is honestly, and it has its slow moments, and I think pacing is one of my bigger criticisms of the first game. But overall, I do think that there's sort of a sublime, almost serenity that sets in when this gameplay system is kind of firing on all cylinders.
That's what makes Death Stranding so unique as a game, is the fact that, when you really break it down, Death Stranding is about walking to, new destinations and literally traversing the environment is the gameplay of Death Stranding. And there's a real calm artistry and, so like you said, serenity to that gameplay loop. And there's literally no other game that has this kind of thought and kind of experience to go with it. I will agree, if I have to criticize the actual gameplay, is that I do think with this first game, it is a bit too clunky for its own good sometimes. Like, you'll be walking around and like, you'll have, there's a system where you have to manage the weight of the cargo you carry on your back. And you have to navigate the terrain to make sure you're walking on even terrain and all that. There'll be times where you're just walking in a relatively straight line, and then Norman Reedus will like just totally, flip out and like acting like, he's about to collapse when you're just like, I'm just walking in a straight line. What are you talking about? And unfortunately, there are moments like that throughout the gameplay experience that, do unfortunately get in the way, but it was never enough to like hinder my enchantment and engagement with the game as a whole.
No, I'd say the same. And then one other spot in the gameplay too that I do think can be a little clunky is, and part of this is me saying this after seeing how they improved upon and just streamlined certain things in the second game. But in the first one, you go down to like these rest spots, right, to kind of restore your health and refresh and everything before you go out on your next mission. And uh, so to fight there's all these spirit creatures, BTs is what they call them in the game, that you have to fight, and you have to like you have to go take a shower, use the bathroom, and then they'll like produce grenades based on that. And that's not the only weapon in the game. But sometimes it did feel like, all right, I got to hit all these button prompts every time I go rest. And sometimes I feel like that could just get just a little monotonous. Again, it's not like a huge detractor. I'm still a big fan of this game, but sometimes I feel like you end up having to do it over and over again. And some of that I feel like, well, I could just go rest and you could just do the one thing and you could just kind of refill the stuff automatically, which I think would be just a little bit smoother.
I definitely agree with that. Like the first game definitely has like a clunk problem in general. Like whether it's like some of the story sequences, as engaging as they are, sometimes they go on a bit too long. They're a bit too wordy, and some of the dialogue is not great in hindsight. But additionally, like you said with the gameplay, there's a little too many there's too many button prompts at points. The inventory is a bit too cluttered, and that like kind of hindered my like enjoyment of the combat and traversal at points. But yeah, like it is one of those hindsight is 2020 kind of things, because like you see the second game and how much better literally every one of those things is, and then you kind of just say like, oh yeah, this first game kind of has like rough draft syndrome on it a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it.
Question. So, I don't know if you guys have maybe said it already. What is the story of Death Stranding? What is going on?
All right, Sage, you take this away. I want to hear what your interpretation of it is.
Okay, so I'll try and make it as straightforward as I can. Basically, we're working off of the like afterlife rules of Egyptian mythology here, and at some point in the past, there was a breach between the worlds of the living and the dead, and spirits are effectively made of antimatter, and living people matter. And when these things touch each other, it creates like like when people make a joke of like a black hole happening, right? Because of two things that are so opposed coming together. It's almost like that sort of explosion, right? And so the world is in just disarray because anybody touches one of these things just annihilates a city, right? And that also caused a I feel like I sound crazy describing it, but it also started causing time rain or time fall, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
So this rain comes down and ages anything it touches, right? So between ghosts being everywhere and rain that makes you age, all of society has retreated into like underground cities, basically. In these like small areas. People don't go outside. They don't like interact with each other physically, which everybody thought was silly in like November of 2019, which will never not be funny. The hindsight that this game had.
Right.
Um, but so that's your setup for why the world is the way it is. Like there's no internet anymore, right? And so then you, Norman Reedus, are basically tasked with going out and rebuilding or creating a new type of internet or something similar to an internet. And so there's, the obvious themes of connection come in there, people being connected, society being connected, what those connections and the values of that are, what the drawbacks are too. That's also an interesting topic that gets brought up. Maybe more in the second one than the first one, but still, I think it's very present.
It's a very the themes are very universal. Like what you're describing is kind of a crazy scenario, let's be real, but at the same time the themes of like connecting people or reestablishing connections and like realizing the importance of like communities and society as a whole is, it's a very universal theme. And however crazy way it is presented, is something very kind of provocative, I think.
Absolutely.
Okay. And you take control over Sam Porter. Sam Porter there. Sam Porter Bridges, played by Norman Reedus, who people might know Norman Reedus, Daryl Dixon on The Walking Dead, and Daryl Dixon on The Walking Dead. He was also there. Well, also he's got the Boondock Saints. He's got that. People also might know that.
He had some show about motorcycles, I think, too, right?
Yes, he did do that as well.
He kind of strikes me as a motorcycle guy, just in general.
Yeah. Is this kind of the first time in kind of a Hideo Kojima game? Because he uses a lot of very famous actors in this game, people who have not done video games maybe prior. Is this the first time he's done that before with this Death Stranding?
Well, Kiefer Sutherland came in and played Venom Snake in the Phantom Pain and Ground Zeroes. But before that, I don't remember any well, actually, no, because we did recently find out that I forget her name, but the voice actress from Ariel for The Little Mermaid, the original actress, played a major character back in Metal Gear Solid 3. So that's the first time that happened, as far as I'm aware. But I mean, David Hayter, certainly not like a Hollywood movie star, but his name's out there.
Yeah, I mean, he's mostly known for being a writer. Like he wrote the first two X-Men movies and Zack Snyder's Watchmen movie. But yeah, you are right that Kiefer Sutherland was sort of like, as far as like big known names, Kiefer Sutherland playing Venom Snake was the first one that really Kojima did that with.
And then in this game, you got famous actors there. You got Mads Mikkelsen is this. You have Mark Qualley. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Leah
Sadu.
In this as well. You also have some directors in this as well. You have Guillermo del Toro there. There you got him. You got Nicholas Winding Refn in this as well. Is it distracting to have any of these kind of actors in the game?
See, I found it distracting in Metal Gear Solid 5 because I knew what Snake looked and sounded like, and it wasn't Kiefer Sutherland. So I did find it distracting in that game. But these are all original characters crafted for these actors to play. At least that's how it feels to me. So I never found it distracting in these. I mean, yes, are they famous, faces and names? Yes, but at the same time, it's such an off-the-wall story and the context they're being presented in that any sort of like weird tone that they bring is intentional. I think it's just part of the just very weird world and the presentation of it that he's going for.
Well, and plus they're just such strong actors that like I think with lesser talent it would have been distracting. But the fact that Margaret Qualley and Lea Seydoux and Mads Mikkelsen and all these guys, even Troy Baker who plays the villain, they're such good actors that you don't really it's not distracting at all, I don't think. What is more distracting is the fact that some of their names, the character names, are a little on the nose, to say the least. Like there's a guy whose name is literally Die Hard Man. Like, come on. I like it, but come on, man.
Yeah, it's. I mean, and yeah. There's a few examples of that. I mean, and even some of the Metal Gear games have some names like that too. If you go back and look at them, but yeah, they make me laugh. It's some of the weirdest because again, they're so literal and they're so direct. Uh, but then at the same time, the actors will put a performance in, and by the time like you're done experiencing that character, they kind of win you over. Even at
Like,
least for me, they win me over with the name even a little bit.
like Die Hard Man, like he is a that guy that plays Die Hard Man is acting his ass off in this game. So like,
Yeah, he gives a speech in kind of like the closing hours of the game that I thought was like, wow, that's like one of the best like monologues I feel like I've seen an actor get in a video game.
yeah, it's up there for sure.
And this is the character right here, correct? Oh, hold on, let me show them there.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and it's Tommy Earl Jenkins. Who plays
Yes, that guy.
Yeah, he knocks it out of the park. He's got one of the best performances in the game just because of what the screen time they give him, especially near the end. And to just cap off the actors, Troy Baker was mentioned, but also this is, as far as I'm aware, the only game where Troy Baker's actual face is used. Normally, he's voicing a role like Joel in The Last of Us or Booker in Bioshock, and, you know, a ton of things, right? He's been in everything, but as far as I'm aware, this is the one game where it's actually his face being used. So he stands alongside all these other actors, and it's fully him in the
I think
presentation.
I think you're right because like the only thing I can think of is like was Ocelot's face in Metal Gear 5 his face or is it just
I
mocap?
don't think so. I think that was more based off of like just like the way the character looked in the other games.
Fair, fair.
Okay. And this is
That's
Troy Baker.
that was kind of unique and different for him.
Right.
Yeah, very My Chemical Romance. Very nice.
Well, and with the goofy over the top names, this character is referred to as Higgs, like the Higgs boson God particle.
Oh my god. I did not make that connection at all.
So it's totally that type of goofy thing. It's all over, right? It's Kojima's fingerprints everywhere on the thing, and I don't know how much more story I can truly explain. It's because there's so much and it's so wordy. It's not really a Kojima game without a bit of that word salad in there, but uh, you are basically given this job to reconnect everything um, by your dying mother, the president. um, I know, again, it sounds ridiculous just to say it, even to myself, but uh, and then you have a sister who is kidnapped by the Higgs character, and then it starts to get vastly weirder from there. Also, people can't normally see these ghosts, right? Or beach things was the full. Again, there's also a lot of like made up terms, and then there's acronyms for those terms, and so then you have these made up acronyms, and then like a glossary of like, all right, what does that mean again? There's all sorts of things like that. But
Right.
you basically have to take one of these babies in a battery jar and plug an electronic umbilical cord into them. That lets you see the ghosts. Then you throw your grenades made out of your, blood, pee, shower remnants, and you throw those at the ghosts. And that's how the combat system works here.
Let me see if I can pull up some combat scenes here. There,
Yeah.
but you got that with the collector's edition there.
Yeah, this is part of the collector's edition of the first game. I'll leave this out sometimes if I have company over and I know that people don't know what this is. I'll leave it on like a shelf somewhere, and I've seen people look at it and then look back at me and not say anything. And I could tell they're like looking at it, but they're like not sure if they want to ask.
It's an attention grabber, I'll give you that.
Yeah, absolutely is.
I have here, so I got the first boss fight. I don't know if you want me to show that. Maybe that exemplifies some of the combat.
Yeah,
here.
that's early enough in the game.
Yeah.
That's not going to like spoil anything crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
go for it.
I'll show this. It doesn't show. I don't think it'll show maybe him throwing the baby juice or the grenade juice there, but
Well, that actually is a boss from the second game.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
the second one.
Oh, sorry about that.
I was about to say. Like,
Let me see if I can pull up one for the first one there.
Well,
But in the
and that's
meantime,
one thing. Also, oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so one thing while you're pulling it up about the combat too is I think you get a few tools for sure, but I will also say that, and I think the boss fights are a lot of fun in the first game, but I do think there's a lot of them that they're very similar. Like there's
Mhm.
only a couple different types of bosses, and you fight a lot of them multiple times. And I don't think that ever necessarily was like wearing my patience thin, but I could maybe see other people having that problem.
Yeah, so the bosses are mainly the BTs, which come in the form of like these animals. Like you'll fight, like a whale or a dolphin or something like that. That is a beach thing, a BT. And then the other bosses are like more humanoid scale. They're more like skirmishes at like these bandit camps essentially that you come into. And yeah, I did find the combat, the combat is again a kind of a victim of the clunk of the first game, where like just the user interface is just not very conducive to be reactive to combat, and it did
Yeah.
kind of deter me from like engaging in it as much as I could have. But at the same time, I can't deny that like when you actually get into boss fights, mainly with the BTs and the mandatory story fights, it was
Yeah.
really enjoyable just because like the mechanics made sense in those scenarios. It just didn't really feel like it made sense a lot of the time in the open world traversal segments.
And some of the kind of story-based boss sequences, especially in like the kind of last act of the game, some of those I think are really great. But of course, they're very specially designed around like unique mechanics that are only in those moments. But those moments I think are all really, really well done.
Oh,
So
they
the,
are.
the stuff he's throwing, so that's the stuff you're talking about right there. The stuff he's throwing
So
there.
it's you have blood grenades, pea grenades, shit grenades, and collections of what's left over after you shower grenades.
Okay.
Ghosts don't like those things.
Yeah, it's like there's a lore reason for it, but it's like they don't like being contacted with like the like people and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's like the viscera of the living sort of a thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, and so what was he kind of thinking with this game as far as the concept kind of goes there, Hideo Kojima there?
So it's funny because I remember when there was probably one, maybe two trailers for this, and there was just kind of hype building, and no one knew what was going on. And people would ask him like, "Well, so what is the game?" And he would go, "Well, video games are made with sticks. I want to make a game about ropes." And he would just kind of walk away, and people would be like, "I don't know what that means." But in hindsight, when you actually get your hands on the game and you experience it what he's saying does make a lot of sense.
It does.
And he's always tried to make games that put some sort of pressure on the player or reward the player for engaging in non-violent solutions to problems. And that's always true with Metal Gear, right? It's always more about stealth than it was about action. But with this, I think he goes even further. I mean, you can't even like kill an enemy without having to worry about one of those big explosions happening and taking out like a whole piece of the map, right? So you were trying to avoid actually like killing an enemy at all costs, if possible. And I think it's really just about. I mean, like with the whole kind of new internet thing that you put together in the game, it's almost trying to create a like social media situation where people can only interact positively with each other. I think that's a big part of what Kojima is going for.
Yeah, if I had to play armchair psychologist, I just think that he wanted, he had spent so many years making Metal Gear games, which are like, games about like espionage and, high octane action and those kind of things. And I think he just wanted to make something that's fundamentally different from not only Metal Gear, but just a lot of games in general. And I think he very much succeeded because like the whole point of Death Stranding at the end of the day is about connecting societies and people and ideas and cultures. Like you said, there's a whole social media aspect about giving likes to, we haven't even talked about this, but there's like a building component where like you can build structures like roads and bridges and, power generators to help players, traverse the environment. And I think he just wanted to create a game that's about not only connections, but just helping people you don't meet. Because like, to quote the musical Hamilton, your legacy is a garden that you'll never see the fruits of. And I think he wanted to make a game about you making gardens that you never see.
Okay.
No, that's 100% true. And to add to that, I think that is when you most like you can look at the game and the premise and read a synopsis and see some cutscenes and you can get like, okay, this is kind of the idea he's going for. But when you actually like are in the game and you're driving a vehicle to try and get somewhere and the battery runs out and there just happens to be a power generator close to where you are that someone left behind, or you put a bunch of resources into building a road structure to get from like one city to another safely and not having to go over like a mountain, and you see slowly contributions come in from other players and then yourself, and these things come into existence. There's like there's a feeling of satisfaction that comes from like a communal effort being put forward, that I think that feeling is what he's trying to give people. And that's something that I feel like you can only really fully understand by from playing the game. And you can be told that's the idea, but there's something special that I just haven't seen any other games do by creating that sensation.
It's kind of beautiful in that you gain so much just by being nice to people. Like, I can't even count the number of times I drove a fully armored, carrier truck with a lot of supplies that was built by another player that like I didn't have the resources for, and just how satisfying it was to think that like this other player helped me out, and in turn I'm gonna leave a zip line so that you can cross these mountains easier. It's a really special feeling, and there's just I cannot think of a single game that has this kind of experience. It's really one of a kind.
Mm. And you mentioned some people were maybe a little deterred from playing this game, as far as like maybe this is not my type of thing. It's a little weird. And like you said, people also said like, oh, well, it's just a lot of walking. I don't feel like doing all this walking. Kind of, it's a walking simulator. Do you think there has to be like what gamer do you think that this game appeals to?
Ooh, it, hmm. Because I feel like it is a new genre. It is kind of a new invention. Like there's a sim aspect to it, but I feel like it really is a new type of thing that it's kind of carving out its own new, fan for what this is doing. Certainly, some of the weirdness of Metal Gear, some of that's in here, and maybe that'll appeal to some people. But I don't know if there's any other game that you could go like, do you like this? Then you definitely like this. I just don't know if that you can really make that sort of recommendation with this series now. Maybe more so with the second one, but I think with the first one, I didn't really even recommend like to a lot of my friends and stuff to actually play it because I was like, I just don't know if you'll like it. It is weird and it is different. But if you're interested in experimental storytelling and just someone that again is just very earnest and is just trying to genuinely provide you a new type of experience and not kind of rehash things all the time, it's worth giving a try, I think, for that reason. Um, we mentioned earlier that the pacing can be a little slow at times, like between maybe certain major story events and early parts of the game. It could take a little while to get going, but I think it really does reward you for sticking through it.
As far as like the game recommendations, I'm going to actually take this question in a different route. I think if you're interested in auteur artist theory, I think that those are the people that are going to appeal to this game, because like Kojima is an auteur. Like he's in the same school as like David Lynch or like a Hideaki Anno or a Hayao Miyazaki, where like his signature is so distinct that like I think people who are interested in like really daring artistic experiments and interpretations of gameplay mechanics will be really interested in it. I mean, I can't guarantee you'll enjoy it because frankly, there were points in this game where I didn't enjoy the act of playing it, but at the same time, the atmosphere, the music, the overall ideas, and the big picture concepts are so fascinating that like I think the people who are interested in auteurist theory will be the ones that are most like enthralled by this.
Well, and I think it's interesting too to bring up the just this idea that like are video games art? I think yes, right? I would say totally. Um, Now then the second question is, does art of any medium always have to be fun for it to be good? And I would say no. And so and sometimes I think there's clunkiness that could just be designed better. And when we eventually talk about the second game, I can totally get into how I think they do, fix a lot of the problems of the first game. But even that being said, I think video games are a piece of media that people expect to always be fun first. And I think to grow it as an art form, which I think this is a game that actively does and pushes, I think you have to be willing to kind of settle in sometimes for something not necessarily being fun. Like there's lots of film that is great film, some of the best film ever made, but it's not necessarily fun to watch, and that might be because of the subject matter, the emotions it's trying to process through. It might not be fun to watch a really sad movie, but that doesn't mean it's not good. And I think with video games, I think people just look for like this very immediate fun interactivity, and it's not wrong to do that, but I think to allow the whole medium to grow artistically, there has to be room for things to not always be fun, or the purpose of it isn't always to be fun.
I completely agree. Like even bouncing off of video games in this example, like Spec Ops: The Line is not necessarily a fun game because of the subject matter, yet it's a really engrossing piece of art. And like, not to derail it, but like Last of Us 2 is not necessarily a fun game to play because of its subject matter, but like say what you will about it, it gets artistic reactions from people. So like, I fully agree that like, video games are art. And I think part of it is the fact that, you have to experiment with experiences that aren't the typical norm. Like, and this is just, prime example of like artistry within the interactive video game medium.
Okay. In this game, we'll talk about the sequel later on there as well with that, as Sage mentioned with that. But this first game also got generally positive reviews there. Says here critics praised the voice acting, soundtrack, and visuals of it. It got more mixed opinions regarding its gameplay and story, but it was still nominated for numerous amount of awards there. It says by July 2021, the game had sold 5 million copies worldwide. And then people like Sage mentioned also compared it to what was going on currently at the time when this game was released in November 8th, 2019, when the COVID pandemic came months later. So a lot of people had the time there for that.
I saw so many people at that time be like, I don't like this. This is weird. It's lame. I don't like playing this. And then like 5 months later, they were like, I really get what they're going for now.
Kojima is Nostradamus. Like, it's kind of scary how accurate he is. Like, the entire plot of Metal Gear Solid 2 predicts the rise of like fake news and internet misinformation. The entire plot of MGS4 is about the war economy and like war profiteering. So it's crazy how on the pulse he is at points.
The original game is about like cloning and genetics and stuff, and that game came out like I think almost exactly 1 year before we actually cracked the human genome.
Right, it was right after Dolly the Sheep was made.
Yep.
At the Game Awards, it was nominated for Game of the Year, Best Game Direction, Best Narrative, Best Art Direction, Best Score Music, Best Audio Design, Best Performance, Mads Mikkelsen, Best Performance, also Norman Reedus, Best Action Adventure Game. It won 3 of these. It won Best Game Direction, Best Score and Music, and Best Performance. Mads Mikkelsen there. Do you know what won Game of the Year in 2019?
It wasn't Sekiro, was it?
Yes, it was. It was Sekiro twice there. This was a good year. You had Sekiro, you had Control, you had Death Stranding, you had The Outer Worlds, and you had Resident Evil 2 up for Game of the Year.
Oh boy, that is a pretty solid lineup for Game of the Year nominees.
By April 2025, Death Stranding has reached over 20 million players worldwide. And it ended up turning a profit there, so they were able to secure the funding for Kojima's next project, which was Death Stranding 2. Go around, get you guys' final thoughts and rating for this Death Stranding. Neil, what's your final thoughts and rating?
Death Stranding is a real artist piece, in interactive form. It's not something I can confidently say everyone will enjoy equally, but even despite its flaws, like we talked about, like just general gameplay issues that seem more like just oversights rather than deliberate decisions, it's such a unique experience that I cannot, it's just fantastic. Not perfect, but I do think this is peak gaming for sure. You will never play another game like this, and it's a testament to artistic expression in interactive mediums.
What about you, Dixie?
I'm right there. Peak for me as well. You're not going to get it anywhere else other than with this guy and with his games. Even his other games are not this. It's just so different in its own thing. And yeah, it's not going to work for everybody. It even might not work for most people. It's very not mainstream. But for me, the just kind of quirky weirdness of Kojima it just works for me. And I can let a lot of the like gripes that I do have go in favor of what is working. And I think, again, it rewards you for your time. The longer you stick with it, the more you do get out of it. Anybody that quit in the first 10 hours, I'd be like, yeah, I can see why maybe you didn't get to anything that like you thought was like really, really amazing because it does kind of hold back and wait. And that is a pacing criticism. But yeah, it's a special experience. And I'll never forget playing it that first time. And I will continue to revisit it over the years, I think.
Yeah.
And how long is this game? How long does it take?
Ooh, gosh, I'd probably put at least 100 hours in there.
I
Let me
think my
see.
story,
What's like the
I think my story play time was around 50 hours, like doing a couple side quests, but mainly focusing on the story.
Yeah. So it
yeah,
says the
yeah,
main
something like
story
that.
is 40 to 45 hours if you want to play that. If you want to completionist, if you want to finish everything, apparently it's 80 to 120 hours. If you want to do that. It's not too bad there. Did you play the director's cut, or did you all go on to play that, or you just played the regular edition?
So I played it on launch when it first came out, but I did go back and play the director's cut updates, and they're actually really nice. It's a lot of stuff that it does fix some of the complaints that I might have had about the initial game, just maybe certain like we only briefly mentioned, but there are some human enemies in the game where they'll like steal packages. They have like these bandit camps that you can go and get things from, and some of the stuff in the director's cut some new weapons and tools that just made combat with those human enemies a lot more engaging. Added a like very Metal Gear inspired mission where you sneak into a warehouse. There's like racetrack, gun ranges for like practice combat stuff. The director's cut feels like it's testing a lot of ideas for how to evolve to and how to
Right.
add new things to the second game. But because it's like a test, they're not as like integrated, of course, as they actually are into. So they're there and they're fun and they are an improvement, but they're also maybe just slightly scatterbrained at the same time.
Yeah, I played the original PS4 version, and I only played a little bit of the director's cut, and pretty much what you said. Like they add a couple weapons and a couple more structures that you will see in Death Stranding 2, and it does improve the original game, but like you said, it's not fully fleshed. It's not fully fleshed out yet, like it is in 2. One thing I will say though, the bullet gun is the best weapon in the entire game. Like just
Mm.
I love stealth games, and just the bullet gun, most satisfying weapon in the entire game.
You feel like Batman in the cartoons anytime he wraps people up.
Well, then maybe that's why I love it so much. It's basically just like the fat rope gun, basically.
Mm. Okay, very nice. And then this game, with the price on it now, I wonder if it's had a sale since the sequel is out right now.
I would be surprised if it doesn't.
I'll look it up real quick.
Let's see here. So I see here on the PlayStation website, you can get it for $60. That's the director's cut. On Steam, I'm looking at it right here. It says, "Oh, okay, so you can get the director's cut for $16.99."
Oh,
Oh, that's a steal.
You get for 16, right? So this ends July 10th. So people got a few days there. Hopefully, you see this review in time before the sale is over. But yeah, so you can get it. That's pretty good. $16.99 for the director's cut of this game. It's pretty good deal.
Play
And
some
I mean, the
good-
game is 6 years old now too, so I think it's probably going to show up on most sales throughout the year, like at least all the big holiday ones.
right. Play some good art, people. Play some good art.
So there's that. Okay. So people, if you want to play it on Steam, you can get it at $16.99. But if you want to play it on console, looks like you have to get it for $60 there if you want to get it on still on console there. If you want to do that. Very cool there. So 2 peaks from Neil and Sage for Death Stranding there.
Alright.
Very, very cool. Thank you, Neil. Thanks, man.
Of course, I have to go, but thank you guys. It's been a blast.
Yeah, I didn't mean to keep you too long there, man, but have a good one.
All right, you too. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, let me bring in these guys. Hey, how's it going there?
Hey.
Your name?
Hello, hello.
Going there, Ulysses. How is it going there? Very good to see you. I got basically almost the whole crew here of Rated Infantry.
Not quite, but you're getting there. It's just so many of us.
Yeah, invaded here.
Replicating.
There, very, very nice.
We are the swarm.
And you guys are gonna review FBC Firebreak, and I'm gonna say I actually played this game, so it'd be nice. I can actually.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, FBC played it. So let me just queue up that, and we go ahead and get started. We're doing a review for FBC Firebreak. Some other people here. The Chill Spot, he's still on. I can give him a raid after this. Who else is on right now? Meaty Portable's still on. She's a wrestling content creator. Watching that wrestling there. Very awesome there. Geekdom is on playing that Liza P. We just did a review for that.
Overture DLC.
Yeah, so he's playing that. Very cool there, Geekdom. Very good guy. Yeah, some good people. Hopefully they're still on after this stream here. But let you guys introduce what you got going on, what you got coming up next from Rated Immaturity. What's your next stream there?
Let's see. Tomorrow, actually, about 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, we are working our way through Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which has been awesome. I love it. It's my second playthrough. The game is fantastic. Other than that, that's just that. Each Tuesday is our only real rock solid plan. But again, Tim's got his computer up and running, so hopefully we'll be getting the Saturdays more consistent again.
I know at some point me and Sage had talked about doing a stream for Space Marine 2 now that it has its Horde mode coming out. So
Yes.
that might be a thing in the near future.
Definitely.
And Tim and I will be getting back to Baldur's Gate sometime soon.
But this
Hopefully
channel,
we'll hopefully have a store page for our book very soon to be able to link you to.
yes, very nice there. And this is your channel right here, almost at 500 followers right here on Twitch there. Very cool. People can check you out. You're gonna be streaming tomorrow there, and you say you're gonna be continuing Indiana Jones tomorrow. So we're doing that, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle there. Very nice there. And this is your YouTube right here. So people can't see your streams there, catch them live on Twitch. They can see here on YouTube right here where you got all the various different games there from all across all the different genres there. Action adventure, multiplayer there, shitty with Dongo there. You know, got all types of different games there. But you got FBC Firebreak right here. Tim, that's the Tim there. Tim Takeover there with Sage playing at FBC Firebreak. Very cool there. And almost close to 100 right over here, 100 on YouTube. That'd be pretty awesome. Get you guys there on
kind of.
well, yeah, you're over a quarter away there. So you're over a quarter.
Over a quarter.
Yeah, so you got that quarter. Well, I don't know. The dollar's kind of going down, but
Yeah, a quarter is now worth a quarter.
yeah. So yeah. But hey.
Well, maybe that means we're worth $1.
Yeah. Well, you got always looking at the glass half full there. You gotta look at that. And then also, like you said, got a book coming out, hopefully, and maybe that'll be on the store pretty soon there as well. People can start purchasing it. Direct them to the link to the book. It'll be better than the guy who probably made the orc book.
God, I hope so.
It'll be better for him there. So hopefully,
If it's not, we'll go back to our caves.
very awesome. All right, let's do this. Let me pull up this one last thing. Okay. All right, so for our final review of the day, it is going to be for FBC Firebreak. This is a first-person shooter game here developed by Remedy Entertainment. Entertainment, people might know for such games as Alan Wake, the Alan Wake series, as well as Control there. We've reviewed many of their games on this channel before there. I've recently gotten into the Remedy universe, the RCU there.
One of us.
Been playing a lot of their games. I'm going to be probably playing Quantum Break since that was on Game Pass for free, so I'll probably be playing that pretty soon there. This is Remedy's first multiplayer game there, but it's not your typical multiplayer game. Nothing is ever that typical with Remedy there, and this very strange experience. So what are you doing here? Well, in this game here, you take control there of the cleanup crew. Basically here, they're these kind of members there that are kind of coming into the base of the was the oldest house, I think, correct? Or the oldest house there. And if people play, this directly connects to what a lot of the events of what was going on in Control, where you had a lot of these people infected by the hiss, mutated a lot of the people, the workers there. Playing this game, it makes you think, well, damn, how many people actually worked in this office, given how many people were infected and what's going on. But you have a lot of the infected are in here, as well as these infected items as well that come into here. People like the sticky notes in this, evil sticky notes. You'll never look at sticky notes the same way again after playing this game. And it's just you're trying to eliminate all these various kind of things there to clean it up and to make sure it is all hiss free. And there's also different classes, and we'll get into that in the game that you play in this game there as well. But the game does very much heavily promote co-op play, playing with people you know, especially they're communicating with other people to get because there's specific jobs you have to do in order to get the mission done. There's not just kill a bunch of all the enemies and then that's it. It's a lot of accomplishing a mission there to clear it out. So I'm going to go around, get you guys' thoughts on this game and what do you think about it. No Name, what are your thoughts here on FBC Firebreak?
For starters, going into it, knowing it was inspired by, or at least influenced by, Deep Rock Galactic, which I've been a huge fan of, put countless hours into that. And so, yeah, seeing that there was going to be a Remedy game that was that similar style, I knew I was going to love it from the start. I actually did a little bit of the playtesting, the first round, or second round of playtesting, I think, for that game. Yeah. And then, I haven't stopped. I've been playing it constantly every second I can since it dropped. I probably should slow down at some point or I'm going to kill it for myself, but I absolutely love it.
Okay. What about you, Ulysses?
So, I mean, going into this, I mean, it looks very much like what you would kind of expect from like an extraction shooter. Those are kind of all the rage right now, and I do feel like Remedy kind of was like, hey, that's what all the kids are playing these days. Let's make one of those too. Things like Warhammer Darktide or Helldivers 2, things like that. And this is very much mechanically a extraction shooter through and through. I would say it doesn't really, come up with anything new in terms of like pure gameplay elements or anything like that. But what it brings to the table is having an extremely unique setting and like just this insane world where in any given mission, you're not just shooting dudes, you're dealing with a talking furnace and you're, fighting sticky note zombies and things like that. And that's kind of a breath of fresh air, sorry, that I think is creatively really nice to have on the market right now.
What about you, Sage?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with all those. I think that this game is very in a older style of multiplayer game as well. As much as it's an extraction shooter, which is a modern trend, it also has sensibilities of older games, or maybe even indie multiplayer games, like Deep Rock, where there's no like daily login bonus thing, or like, oh, this is a timed event, so you're gonna miss it if you don't log on to play it. And that's what a lot of the kind of multiplayer live service genre is today, right? Is it's kind of like seeing your eyes on the screen, and every second of that is like a currency in and of itself for the game. You know, that's it's purely trying to just keep you glued as long as possible. Whereas I think this game is structured in a way that it's very happy for you to come in, play 20 minutes, turn the game off, and go about your day. Like it's really trying to make something that, and some of the creator developers said this, but they kind of had like dads that only get like 40 minutes a week to play a game. They had that sort of person in mind. And it also, on top of like Deep Rock Galactic, there's a bit of that Left 4 Dead feeling in there. At least just in terms of Left 4 Dead being like kind of the one of the iconic multiplayer games of its era, and that being an era where it was just you just put the game in, you logged on with each other, and then it was go. You didn't really have, you know, this like endless menu system and microtransactions and that. And this game does have a little bit of the microtransactions, but it's really just something that gets cosmetics. And it's just kind of speeding up a process that you could do slower in the game. And to be honest, this game's reward progression system is actually quite quick. Now, that being said, there's been a couple patches since the game launched, so it's been sped up intentionally. But you know, it's only been 2 weeks or 3 weeks now, and I've maxed out almost everything in the game, like quite quickly. And just like No Name, I've been playing this a ton, probably more than most people are. So I've, you know, certainly maxed it out based on that. But it's also just not that grindy. Like it doesn't feel grindy in the way that a lot of multiplayer games do now.
The different class types in the game, and they're going to be adding some more class types pretty soon. So right now we got Fix Kit, we got Jump Kit, and Splash Kit. The Fix Kit focuses on repairing different items within the environment. There, you hit it with your wrench, and it repairs it there. The Jump Kit is like the electricity there, kind of gun you have. You shock things, and that's able to turn different things on. Things like shower, things like the ammo shack with that generator there. Then you also have the Splash Kit there. The Splash Kit is the healer of the group, focuses on that. Especially works in the furnace environment where characters can easily get on fire there with that. And they do plan to add on more classes later on. You can do the different jobs of the other classes, but you have to go through like this mini game there where you got to kind of do that, click all these different buttons to do it. It's much quicker if you have somebody with the actual skill, but even if you're another class, you can still fix the different things. It would just take longer to do that. What did you all think about the different classes in the game, and which one was your favorite?
Well, for me, it was the Splash Kit. It's probably my favorite, and that is very much like I said. It's like a big water cannon. You're dealing with fires and keeping environmental hazards you know, as low as possible. It's like a healer class basically. But yeah, I don't know. I found that, I guess, just particularly engaging. But I also just in general, the way that the classes work together, I think, is designed very well. Every single one of them fills another's weakness with a strength, and that is, you know, what makes this game work really, really well when you have like a full team all communicating with each other. Now, if you don't have people to speak to, I feel like I haven't played too many matches like that. No Name, you might be able to speak to that better than I can, but it is sort of a situation where the game's designed around being able to communicate and plan and strategize your way around an environment. And that's one criticism I'll mention is the game has no like in-game chat. even though it's a cross-play game, so people are going to be matching with each other from all different systems. So a game based on communication, missing that bit of communication is a bit of a weird thing. But
What about you, Noonan?
Yeah, to start off with speaking to the sort of quick play or playing with random teammates. I definitely agree it's lacking on that, or it would benefit from an in-game chat. I've seen people get pretty innovative with pings, like someone will ping the shelter and that means I'm going to open this, that kind of thing. But that aside, when I was playtesting, I loved the splash kit. Like Sage, I've been having a lot of fun with the jump kit. I barely use the jump ability, but the boombox taunt to keep them away is really fun. And quite useful, especially if you are playing solo. Pop that off, get your objective done, and then come back and take everybody out. Like Sage mentioned, the patches have been really quick in terms of responding to player feedback. I was a little bit concerned when they said they were speeding up progression because I had already put so many hours into it, but I had to realize that was kind of a me problem from just diving in headfirst and playing it nonstop instead of like then your casual player will still feel that progression without diving into it like I was.
Yeah. And what's your favorite? You said you loved the splash
kit
and the jump
kit ended up being my favorite. Yeah.
Okay. What about you there?
Well, it's funny because my favorite was probably the fix kit. So I guess we got a well-rounded team over here. Yeah, I love the little deployable turret, the piggy bank corrupted item that you get. It's pretty nice. That's one of the ways that this game sets itself apart is by giving each different class these really cool corrupted items that you can use. You get the piggy bank, which is like a giant melee like AoE. You get the lightning gnome, which is like a good way to also kill your party by accident. And then you've got the weird like teapot fire cannon for the water class. All of those were really fun. And I almost feel like you could use them like it'd be maybe a little more fun sometimes if you could use them more. But I think the way they have it makes sense. I will also say that I generally found the gunplay in this game pretty satisfying. There's not a lot of weapons, but what they have are really well done. Like the shotgun, the double barrel one almost feels like it came straight out of Doom 2. The machine gun is just a good all-purpose weapon. Like all of them seem like they're designed to fill a purpose and be fun at the same time. And yeah, I mean, the game does a lot of little cool stuff that really helps set itself apart. I think one of my complaints might be that there's not a whole lot of variety in the enemies. The enemies that are there are really good, and I think do a great job of, sort of expecting the player to use all the tools at their disposal to beat them. I just kind of wish there was like a bit more variety between like the three different dudes that run up at you and try to hit you with something.
And you mentioned the weapon types there. What would you say is kind of the most useful one? Maybe the double barrel or the machine gun? Or
I would say all around, probably the machine gun once you fully upgrade it. But starting out, I'd say the double barrel shotgun is your best friend. And I will agree with what Corbin said about the progression system, where it's one of those things where you're like, oh, if you've been playing this for a while, is this really going to be rewarding for you? But I think it's definitely a good thing, especially in a world where like a lot of these kind of games will announce they're changing the progression system. And then when that actually happens, it's like a giant fuck you to the player base where they've made everything exponentially slower. And this is like they're actively trying to like help you have as much fun as possible. And yeah, I would say one of the earlier patches, the one where they made resources generally easier to acquire, made the game a lot more fun because you could level up your weapons and things much more quickly. So it's definitely a game that I think has improved as it's, sort of been out there longer. I will say it's seemingly kind of difficult to get like public matches that aren't with people who are either just like completely AFK or don't know what they're doing or have like completely awful internet connections, so everybody's lagging the whole time. I feel like this is a game where, at least in my experience, the only really way to play it is if you have a group that you know that can all just get together and go, hey, we're doing this. I will, there have been good experiences with just public games for me, but there have also been ones where it's like, I've been trying this for an hour and haven't gotten anywhere. I think I'll put it down. And this isn't really a game that you can play solo. I don't think it's meant for that, personally.
You will be easily overwhelmed if you play it solo there and not kind of, it would be very difficult to accomplish the mission there. And there is a difficulty level with this. There is easy, there is normal, there is hard on this. I think for the most part, I mean, what were you guys playing it on? Were you playing it on normal there?
We got to the point where we were playing it on hard, I think, like every time.
Okay.
We were playing on a hard. There was one of the early nights we were playing, we did like max difficulty, max corruption, everything the whole time. But I think since then we've been doing it on hard. Okay. But it's still doable and felt fun on the highest difficulty level when it was 3 people communicating.
So it's not so much of a difficulty playing it on the most insane difficulty level. It's still not. It's still manageable, but it still is a challenge, and it kind of strikes that good balance.
Yeah, I would say that every difficulty level feels appropriate and like still fun. I mean, maybe easy is a bit too easy, but it's fine if you're just like, I don't know, achievement hunting or something. But normal and hard, they both feel about like what you'd expect from the name. And then extreme is just, it's a fun challenge. I've got no complaints about the difficulty in the game.
And this is also going to be added more onto later, but the different maps here, like we mentioned already, the furnace level there. There was also a newer level I don't think seen in Control before, which was like this ice type level there, cold environment there as well. Did you all have a particularly favorite environment here, or one that was most interesting?
I think this whole Sticky Ricky thing is maybe my favorite because it's the one that feels the most like of an evolution. Because this game is very light on narrative. Like there's a little bits and pieces of lore, but it's not really what the game's about doing, right? But Sticky Ricky and the replicating sticky notes, it feels like the biggest bit of narrative progression to where the hiss were already a problem in Control. The furnace was a problem in Control. The Black Rock Quarry is the location you go to. But here, I feel like this is like, oh, here's a new type of creature. Like here's like another thing being thrown onto that big pile.
Yeah. What say you there, Nona?
I think my favorite, for similar reasons, was the Black Rock Quarry. Was the Black Rock Quarry one. First time seeing an astral creature, those leeches that you have to shoot to get the radioactive pearl things. Just like that little hint of lore drop that opens up so many questions.
Were any of you ever bored? Maybe because I know there's like limited maps to start off with, playing the same maps over and over again.
I didn't really ever feel bored myself, but that may also be a product of just being such a big fan of this world already. If you haven't played Control and you don't get why the environment is the way it is, or is interesting or weird based on that game, I could see someone who like is just playing this to play like a multiplayer game. I could see that maybe being like not the most interesting set of places to keep going back to. But if you are already kind of invested in the universe and setting, then I think you are going to have a much harder time getting bored of it.
What about you, Ulysses? Do you have a favorite map, or would you ever get bored with the map options?
So I will say that both of them kind of took my what I was going to say with both of those maps. But I will say that I do also really enjoy the furnace map. I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but but there's a lot of variety in the objectives, and I really like sort of the boss fight at the end of that level being more of like this really well done, like sort of teamwork kind of exercise where you're moving those barrels around, and you can really sort of make an efficient process out of that if everybody's on board with the program. And I just think that's really cool design. And I would say that this is the kind of game where I would not want to play it all the time, because I definitely feel like, based on the limited map selection, it is one I would get a little tired of eventually. But I'm not at that point now. I would happily play more of it. But I also haven't been playing it as much as Sage and Corbin have.
And this being, Remedy multiplayer, you guys being big Remedy fans, could a person who is not interested in Remedy, who just is interested in multiplayer games, they're a big, maybe Call of Duty guy or Fortnite guy or Overwatch guy, could they come into this and you think they would have a good experience playing FBC?
I think they could for a bit, just not as long as we did, because I feel that the world, it's so weird and like offers you so much like depth of the mysteries that are going on that it could easily hook people who might not immediately like be interested in it, or they might not know what it is, but they go, oh, weird, there's like sticky note zombies and stuff. And that might keep them engaged long enough that they would be interested in the universe, or at least so that they could look back and say, hey, I had some fun playing this. But it's not a guarantee. I think there'd be a lot of people who could put it down, because it doesn't offer the same kind of action that the games they're used to does.
You agree with that? No name, say.
Yeah, I think especially coming from the like PvP experience shift, like Fortnite's, Call of Duty's, shifting to the smaller co-op in general often finds those players not as stimulated. They're looking for that more thoughtful enemy as opposed to the mindlesses that are just rushing straight at your bullets. But yeah, I agree that I think anyone can find fun in it. But yeah, especially because there's so little actual lore and story in it, which I think is improving over time as they just added the videos.
The puppet training video.
Yeah. But
I was
think
shocked they didn't add those before, like right away.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think that lack of explanation of what the world you're entering is, especially, pulls newer players that aren't already into the Remedy universe away from it a bit. And I see them moving in the right direction, and like a lot of what I'm excited about this game is the potential for what it's going to be a year or two down the road.
Yeah. What do you think there, Steve?
Yeah, no, pretty much the same thoughts. I think somebody could come from those other games and find stuff to enjoy about this, but there's also the chance that it just might not be stimulating enough. I think a lot of those games are battle royale, and it is about getting points for killing as many enemies as possible. And I even have seen footage of people who aren't quite getting or maybe just don't want to go for the different sort of thing that this game is doing, with a set of objectives that are not just kill the enemy. And I've seen people be like playing it in ways where it's like progress isn't even happening because of how they're going about it. So it's part of that also might just be maybe it could tutorialize better too. It might be just be, having those videos, for example, these puppet videos, those start popping up in the game. I think that would be great to give people a better idea of what they're supposed to actually be doing, like from moment to moment gameplay. And Remedy's never been mainstream. They've never made mainstream games, so I don't think this is ever going to be like, even if they make a ton of improvements for years and years and it's still going, it's never going to be like a Call of Duty, or it's never going to sit in that sphere or circle. And I wouldn't want it to anyway. But this is also Remedy's first game that they've ever published to themselves. After Control and Alan Wake 2, they're now big enough to kind of self-publish their own games. And so that does seem like a really great sign for this, because it doesn't have to be raking in $1 billion in microtransactions for a bigger corporate company to decide that it's worth it to keep the servers still running. Remedy gets to decide if it's worth it to keep the servers still running. And they've always been happy with a slow building success rather than, this like breakout, destroy the sales numbers day one sort of thing.
I would also add that it's not impossible for a game like this to do well, as like mostly being a PvE, shoot the bad guys sort of experience. Because Helldivers 2 is that, and it was this massive success, and that has certain advantages over this in terms of having more conventional, broader world building, having a bit more of a basis in like recognizable tropes that people can just immediately grasp. But I feel like this still has the potential where people could look at just how weird it is and, be interested in that.
I'm not seeing sales wise where it is right now. I'm not seeing that.
Well, they made this game free for a lot of people too. It's on
Mhm.
Xbox Game Pass. It's on the PlayStation Plus, at least the higher tiered version of the service. It's not on the basic, but if you subscribe to like the retro game catalog and all that, this was free for those players as well. And its actual price is only $39.99. I mean, they were trying to get this as cheap as possible and free in many cases in as many people's hands as possible. So there was just very little barrier to entry.
Yeah. Yeah, Sage makes that point there. So if you do have Game Pass, Steam, you can play it on there as well. For basically free there. Also, if you have PlayStation Plus, the extra subscription there, you can also get it there for free and download it. You guys paid for it, right? You paid $39.99.
That's correct.
I'm playing it on Game Pass for now, but once it's off Game Pass, I'll buy it. I bought the DLC for now just to give them that early support.
Okay.
So 1 million is, I think, the total number of players. That does not equate to sales, but 1 million players for sure.
Okay. Let's say 1 million players. And No Name brought up something. I wanted to touch on that with you guys. Just about, I know early on there was some complaints there, and they are releasing, like you mentioned, some things like the videos there now, but not really. I know a lot of Remedy people love the Easter eggs. They love the connections to other things, especially people like you guys. Really, when you guys were here reviewing Alan Wake 2, obsessing over all the detail and connections and everything like that. Yeah. What do you think that's a big thing lacking here initially? Is that it being heavily connected and story wise, doing more lore with the.
I will say I do. I mean, I always want more of it. So, yeah, I couldn't say anything else. But I do wish maybe there was just a little bit more. Like you said, the puppet training video, the fact that now when you boot up the game at least for the first time, it'll play this whole puppet orientation video. It's supposed to be from the Threshold Kids employees. That I think is a great little touch that, yeah, should have been in the game on launch. Like, I don't understand why it wouldn't be. Hopefully, they keep adding all the other puppet videos. And I do think on launch day, the game is lacking in some of the, Remedy presentation elements, right? I think they could have done more, like having these videos in, maybe doing a slightly more specific tutorial the first time you play a mission, just to have it coming along a little bit better. I also think one thing that the game is for me very much lacking right now is there's documents like in Control on every loading screen, but loading screens are so quick with modern games that you don't really get a chance to actually read these things. So I'm, having like a spot in like the extras menu to go like, all right, hey, we've picked up documents and here's this stuff. So there again, it's you can stop and then go look at the narrative pieces that are there anytime you want with something like that. So that to me is sorely missing. But again, because they added the puppet video, I'm hoping they'll add that too and improve it over time. Um, you know, very few games like this are, well, I'd say zero games like this are at their best on day one, and that's just like a part of the genre. That doesn't necessarily excuse things that like better tutorials that should be in the game right away, but it does just leave that door open for this game, a review for this game could sound very different today versus a year from now. We could be having like an almost totally different conversation potentially.
Hmm. And how much maps are they going to include with the next update?
So they're doing two big ones later this year. One called Outbreak, which is going to be in the research sector, and you're going to be dealing with the mold. So new area, right? Slightly, it's just that's another job to add to the variety. And then, like Ulysses mentioned, that's new enemy types to add to the variety too. So you're not only just fighting those couple. Start to mix it up a little bit more. That's another thing I hopefully we'll get a lot of with the updates. And then the other one is called Blackout, which it actually doesn't say anywhere on their marketing like what area that's going to be taking place in or what types of enemies you're going to fight. But it sounds like it screams taken from Alan Wake to me. So
Yeah, I'd agree, and that's probably what that will be.
Well, I'll go around, get you guys' final thoughts and rating for FBC Firebreak. Ulysses, what's your final thoughts and rating?
Well, one thing I wanted to add real quick to what Sage was talking about with the lore, and which I think is a bit of a failing of the game, is one of the things that this game does is one of the main ways you get your upgrade currency is you go around, you collect all these documents, but you don't actually know what was in these documents. And I'm thinking it would have been such a neat feature to have added if maybe once you collect a certain number of these, you get like an actual like lore thing that you can access via the main menu. So you could have like a whole bunch of fun little control style stories that could expand on the universe, because what's there is a lot of fun to think about with like Hank the Tank and that other guy that are just on the menu making small talk the whole time. It's like I would love to know more about this, but they don't really go deeper with it like they could have. But aside from that, I think, well, thinking about it, that's kind of an issue of the entire game. It makes a lot of great first impressions. The gameplay is pretty fun. It's just that there are a lot of elements of it that could have gone deeper. And hopefully that'll happen because it's getting regular updates. I just get the impression from playing it at launch that it felt a little rushed, like it wasn't quite done, just because a lot of those things that could have been deeper, that could have been developed a little more, weren't quite there. Like the progression system is one of the things that felt a little off when it came out. They fixed it. It's great now. And I'm hoping that's what will continue with this. It's just, as much as I like this game, I do see its flaws.
Okay. So what would be your rating? Would you give it a tune in? Would you give it a stream it?
I'd give it probably a tune in.
Okay.
Not a high one, not a low one, just a tune in.
Okay. What about you, None?
I since we're on the thread of talking about the lore, I agree. It needs more depth in that. I remember them talking in one of the earlier like announcement videos or something. They weren't going to put too much lore in because they didn't want to make anyone play a multiplayer game, given that hasn't been their main experience. But I think they overcorrected on that a little bit. And it needs a little more depth. I've played a bunch of games, like Deep Rock being one of them, Sea of Thieves, where day one, it was barely a game. There was like so little to do, and over time they became some of my favorites. So I'm so excited to see where this one goes. I think it has huge potential, especially to tie into new games potentially as they go. That would take some lore doing, but perhaps there's different areas of the oldest house that will stay locked down in order to keep that game running and not fighting against whatever current lore happens after Control 2. I love the little touches like pushing the elevator button over and over makes it come faster. Just little goofy things like that give it so much of its own character. Like Ulysses was saying, it's so unique in its within a field that is getting more and more full. So I'm been thrilled with it so far. I think right now for me it's a stream it. It could hit peak down the road.
What about you, Div?
Yeah, I'm right about there. I think I just give it a regular tune in. Um, it's got a lot of room to grow, and I think that there's a good chance that it will because of who's making it and how quickly they're already rolling these patches out. But I agree with pretty much all the praise and the criticisms that everybody said for it. It does need more. It would get, it would get stale for people that don't care about this universe, I think, if you're not invested in some way already. And maybe if they had a little more story, it would even pull in some of those new players even more too. So I do think that's a miscalculation to pull back from that on their part. But like we've all said, hopefully they'll continue to add more of that stuff in another year, 2 years. This game could be like full blown peak. I think it really could get there. But I'm very grateful that it's Remedy publishing it because that they get to not decide themselves not to pull the plug. They don't have to have some other bigger corporate entity say it's not making enough money, get rid of it. They should actually be able to, with their authority, keep it around long enough to have all those improvements made, which I think is the really exciting thing about it compared to a lot of other multiplayer stuff.
Yeah, I played it a few times there. Wrecked them close to maybe 10, 20 hours on it. I think it is a decent, enjoyable multiplayer experience there. Much like with Remedy games, it's not your typical multiplayer game there. It's got its own unique identity and unique flavor on the multiplayer gameplay there and the things you do in it with the levels there, with the coordination with the teammates there, these different classes that you have, the different enemy types. That I think it keeps it kind of interesting there. I just don't know if there's much of an appeal to people outside of the Remedy who like the Remedy universe and like the Remedy stuff already. Because as we mentioned before, it kind of does a bad job at introducing newer people to this universe. It's kind of already assumes you're pretty much into the universe already. And we did mention that there are those videos there that now are added to it that will help a little bit maybe of new players in there with it. Right now, I don't know, maybe like I said, maybe do a retro review. I mean, not a retro review, but an updated review of it. Maybe in a year when it has maybe full content going on, more maps, more class types, more maybe weapons there. Could do a more detailed review on it after the update, and maybe a little the score will increase. As of right now, I give it just a stream it for right now. Seems like critic wise here, it's getting mixed to average review from critics. Only 36% of critics recommend the game. Metacritic have it in the 60s out of 100 here. On PC, 65 out of 100. PS5, 66 out of 100. Xbox Series X, 66 out of 100. I know Sage, you played it on the PlayStation. No name, you're on Game Pass with it. You're there. Ulysses, you played it on PC.
Correct.
Okay, so you got a very decent experience there. Any issues there? There any glitches, anything like that going on?
For me, there was just a couple small ones, but never anything like truly game breaking. I had at one point I had like the goo from the I forget the name of it now, but there's the job where you're trying to get this pink slime out of all these fans and stuff. And sometimes playing that job, the who will like get stuck to the character model and not come off, and then I like can't see what I'm doing. That's one glitch that could definitely be improved. And then sometimes on the ice anomaly job, if you throw the like heaters that are supposed to melt the ice, sometimes they'll just go through the floor and disappear, just into oblivion and not come back. Those are the only issues I had really playing on console. Like I said, I didn't do a lot of maps with like random other players. I did a few. I didn't really ever have a hard time finding another player. I know I've heard other people say matchmaking could be a little bit difficult, but it was smooth as far as I engaged with it.
Hmm. Okay. I know Ulysses, didn't you have an issue? I don't know if that was on purpose, getting stuck in the fan when you fixed it and then it turned on and then you try to
Believe it or not, I actually think that is how it's designed, and you could probably say that that might not be the best gameplay design, but I've seen it in public matches, people getting stuck in those things. I've gotten stuck in them. I think we've all gotten stuck in them at one point or another.
Mhm.
But the thing is that's not really a glitch. I think it's just you really are just supposed to get out of the fan as fast as possible, and if you miss your opportunity, you're dead.
I actually did read. Someone said that you could, if you shoot the fan, you can get it to slow down.
Okay, that's something that would be nice if somebody told you in game, but
Yeah.
And there's the
but
tutorial again, right?
as
Yeah.
far as the technical side goes, I didn't really see any major bugs while playing it. There was an occasional maybe like enemies would get stuck in walls or something, but that wasn't really a big deal. It didn't break the actual mission structure or anything like that. As far as outside of the direct gameplay elements, I noticed that at least on PC, the achievement system seemed kind of borked. Like you would do things to get the achievement, and then it just wouldn't process it. That happened for both the get 10 kills while in midair achievement, and for the kill enemies past a certain range achievement, that kind of stuff. It's not a big deal to me because I don't care that much about achievements. It's just something I noted for anybody who might care. And at least on PC, I remember the matchmaking was pretty good shortly after it came out. I don't know if there's been a big fall off of player base or if there was something that went wrong with the matchmaking system itself, but it's gotten a lot worse since then, in my view, at least for public games.
And that is the kind of thing with games of this type is they can accidentally make things worse with their patches sometimes.
Mhm.
So you never know.
I also think it's about timing. Like I've tried to jump on at 10 in the morning and had slow time matchmaking, but if I'm playing in the evening, I never have an issue.
Oh, that's a good point. The matchmaking. Did you all have any issue with that? No name. So you said slow in the slow in the mornings, but picked up in the evenings.
Mhm.
So you all were able to find games pretty quickly when you're not playing with.
When I
people
tried, I was, but I also mostly just played with, some combination of the four people. Right.
Yeah.
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 All right. So Ulysses, you gave it a stream it.
Yes.
No name. You gave it a tune in or stream it there.
Wait, I think I gave it a tune in.
Oh, you gave it a tune in. Ulysses gave it a tune in. You gave it a tune in as well, there, no name. Or
Stream it with the potential for growth. Yeah.
Okay. And then Sage, you gave it a tune in as well.
Tune in with the potential for growth.
Okay. All right. I'll just give it a stream it for right now. Right now for FBC Firebreak there. But play it on if people had Game Pass, if people got the extra PlayStation, they can just play it, check it out. If you don't have to make a full commitment and buy it, the $40 there. So there is that option available. So this game is very accessible to all types of people there. And as Sage mentioned, is crossplay. So even if you have PC, Xbox, PlayStation, there. Well, it's not on the Switch, but if you add a look, you got a Switch. But it's on those other things there. You got that, and you. So yeah, that was FBC Firebreak. That's our review for that. Very nice. Thank you guys so much. Much appreciated there. Thanks for stopping by. I'm gonna go ahead raid Cosmopolitics. She's on right now there. Political streamer also is on the Movie Night Extravaganza as well. Hopefully I'll be back Wednesday. I'll do a stream there with Neil, who was just here helping me review Superman 1978. Do a review for. He's going to be giving his list of top 25 favorite films of the century so far. Do that. We're a quarter into the next century. We're doing that. Not even halfway there yet. Well, none of us are going to make it to the new century anyway, but fun to discuss the potential of that.
Unless they get that Futurama headed jar thing going on pretty quick there.
Yeah, unless they got that going on, or maybe they'll invest in the stem cell research. Maybe you can just inject yourself. You know what I mean, and then you'll turn into like a super soldier or something like that. And you do that. Yeah, and then also Wednesday doing a review for Jurassic World Rebirth. Doing that.
I'm sorry.
Well, it was at least better than Dominion. I'll say that.
Okay.
It was better than Dominion, which isn't saying much, but that. Also, I'll do a review there for Heads of State and the Old Guard 2. Friday, maybe I'll probably be solo. I'll do a review for the James Gunn Superman. That's coming out this week. You all seeing that this week?
I'm gonna try to. I don't know if
Yeah.
I sure, but I'm gonna do my best.
Okay, but it's Superman, so you got to see for Superman. Who doesn't love Superman?
I mean, I want to. I would really like to be there for it.
Yeah. What about you, Ulysses? Are you gonna see Superman?
I probably should. I forgot it was coming out this recently, but that'd be could be a fun time. It'd be nice to see a Superman that isn't dark and edgy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it only took 40 years.
Yeah. It'll remind you what it means to be an American, man. Go see Superman. So do a review for that Saturday. I'll see if I can have Chris Cox on from oneofus.net, do a retro review for Jurassic Park, 1993, where it all began. Is Jurassic Park the only franchise that not have a good sequel?
The only franchise that didn't have a good sequel?
Like for a great
Like-
movie, and then it just didn't have any other good sequel to follow
It's
up.
just like it didn't even
What
have
about
a
Jaws?
follow-up.
Oh well, maybe Jaws. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mhm.
Jaws is a good pick for that.
Mm. I've never seen the Jaws sequels before. Are they
Don't.
Okay.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, I've never seen
One
it.
of them has like a super intelligent prehistoric shark that's like hunting them across like a country or something, I think.
It's like the origin of like every sci-fi movie.
Oh, that may be a good one, Jaws. Yeah. So yeah, Chris Cox maybe will join me Saturday to do a retro review for 1993 Jurassic Park. And then Sunday, I'll have Chris from the Black Stills podcast. He's going to come on, help me review Ironheart. And then maybe I'll have Michael from Greyworks going to help me review 28 Days Later. Yeah, say it, Judas.
I thought of another one, The Matrix.
Ooh, good choice.
I think Matrix. What was the second one? Reloaded, right?
Yeah.
Reloaded.
That's kind of decent.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that one, but
You hate-
I mean, look, what I'll say is I think if somebody that was a really good editor took two and the second and third movies, went into the editing room, cut out a ton of both of them, and stitched one movie together, I think you might have something. But I think, and three is worse, don't get me wrong, but I think both of those movies suffer massively from the studio going like, hey, we need a trilogy, we needed to do more. And I think the Wachowskis, they were like, all right, well, I think we might be able to do one more. I think we have enough ideas for that. And they're like, no. It has to be three. And that's, I think, where all those movies' problems come from.
I got another one. RoboCop.
RoboCop.
Yeah.
I never saw the sequels to RoboCop. So I can't say I never saw this.
Oh, those make the Jaws sequels look good.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't cut out the orgy raid at Zion. You can't cut that out.
Yeah, no, I'd definitely cut that.
Oh man.
Like, does anybody like Zion? Like, let's be real. Does anybody like spending time in Zion?
Well, I mean, they partying, man. I guess so, man. People, they love it there. They love Zion. Party.
It looks like the mustiest party ever.
Yeah. So, so Sunday, 28 Days Later, and Ironheart, and then hopefully Sage can join me again. Maybe I'll check in with him. I think I have a work trip Monday, but I'll see if I'll go to that. But Monday on the docket, I think instead of doing Fan 4 Stick, I think Fantastic Four 05. Do Fantastic Four 05 instead of Fan 4 Stick. Do that there, and because Fantastic Four is coming out next week, do a retro review for that. It's been 20 years since that one came out, so yeah, anniversary there, 20-year anniversary of that film. And then, did you want to do Death Stranding 2?
Yeah, why not?
Do Death Stranding 2
Just finished this year.
as well. All right. I'll go ahead and rate her. Cosmopolitics here. Thank you so much again to Sage. Thank you so much to No Name. Thank you so much to Ulysses coming on and reviewing this FBC Firebreak. Sage also reviewing Death Stranding. All right, people, stay tuned. Out of here.